Hey there, all you word nerds and exam conquerors out there. We're all about aiming for that band 7 plus on the IELTS.
Absolutely.
And honestly, who isn't right?
Exactly.
But band 7 plus vocabulary, it sounds a little scary.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like someone just like cramming in the longest, most obscure words they can possibly find.
Right.
So today we are going to deep dive into how to expand your vocabulary for a band 7 plus on IELTS.
Okay.
And really figure out what it really means, like what actually matters.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's really easy to fall into that trap of thinking, complex equals better.
Right.
But examiners are looking for something a little more nuanced than just, a big vocabulary.
Okay, so what is it then? Like, what are they looking for?
Well, you wouldn't wear a tuxedo to a backyard barbecue, would you?
No.
So it's all about range accuracy and knowing which outfit to wear in your language.
So it's about choosing the right words for the right situation.
Exactly. And our guide actually uses a great example about describing bad weather.
Okay.
So instead of just saying, like, the weather is bad, you could say the weather is terrible or the weather conditions are unfavorable.
Right.
You could even go for it's been dreary and wet all day.
Ooh, I like that.
Which creates a whole mood.
Yeah, dreary and wet actually makes you feel the bad weather.
Exactly.
It's not just a fact. It's like you're painting a picture.
Right. And that is going to make a much bigger impact on a reader or a listener.
Yeah.
Especially an IELTS examiner.
Right.
And the same goes for describing people, instead of saying he's kind for the 100th time.
Yeah.
You can use synonyms like compassionate, generous, or thoughtful, which show off a broader vocabulary.
And you're showing the examiners that you're not just like grabbing the first word that pops into your head.
Yeah.
But you have like this whole toolbox of vocabulary to choose from.
Exactly.
And you know how to use the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
I like it. Okay.
Wow.
So what are some other ways that people can start building up that toolbox?
Well, the guide spends a good amount of time talking about reading.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. It's one of the most natural ways to absorb new vocabulary.
I'm all about a good book. Makes you sound smarter.
Oh, that's a great point, actually. It's not just about expanding your vocabulary. It's about absorbing ideas and perspectives.
Right.
But you have to be kind of strategic about it.
What do you mean?
Think about the kind of language you need for the IELTS.
Okay.
You want to sound informed and articulate, so reading high-quality news sources like the BBC or The Guardian can expose you to that formal vocabulary.
Oh, okay. So if I want to sound like I belong in an academic setting, I need to kind of surround myself with that kind of language.
Precisely. Now, if you want to pick up some idioms and more casual expressions,
Yeah.
novels and short stories are your best bet.
They're like little treasure chests of language. Love it.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, like sometimes I read a book.
Right.
And I just completely forget all the interesting words I come across.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they just disappear.
That's why active reading is so important.
Okay.
Don't just passively let the words wash over you. Underline unfamiliar terms, look them up, and then this is the most important part, use them in your own sentences.
So it's about like taking ownership of the word, not just recognizing it.
Exactly. And the guide gives the example of the phrase rapid urban expansion.
Okay.
You might encounter that in an article about urbanization, and it just immediately suggests a much more impactful picture than just saying cities are growing.
Perfect for those IELTS topics, like about cities, environment, and everything.
Exactly.
But even with active reading, like all those words can feel kind of overwhelming.
Right.
Like I need a system, a way to organize them so I don't forget them all.
Yeah.
What's the best way to do that?
This is where the vocabulary journal comes in.
Oh, yes. The vocabulary journal tell me everything.
Think of it as your own personal word bank.
Okay.
A dedicated space to deposit all those valuable vocabulary you come across and watch it grow.
Okay.
It's not just a list, though. You want to be strategic about it.
Okay, tell me more about how to be strategic. How do I make the best investments in my word bank?
The guide suggests dividing your journal into categories,
Okay.
like general vocabulary, topic-specific words, idioms, even collocations.
Okay, and collocations are?
They're words that often appear together naturally.
Okay.
So, for example, we say heavy rain instead of strong rain, or make an effort instead of do an effort.
Got it.
Using the right collocations will make your English sound much more natural and fluent.
Right, it's about sounding like you actually know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Not like you're just like piecing together random words from a dictionary.
Precisely.
Okay, I like it.
And then for each new word, you don't just write down the definition.
Right.
You want to include example sentences, synonyms, antonyms, and even common collocations.
So let's say I come across the word like mitigate
Oh, mitigate is a great word to use in formal context.
Okay.
Like an IELTS essay.
So I could use it in an essay about climate change, right? But I could also use it to talk about, like, mitigating the damage from my late-night cookie theft.
Exactly. You're understanding the range of the word and how it can be applied in different contexts.
Yes, examiners. I know this word exists, but I also know how to use it.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, but I have a confession.
Okay.
Sometimes just reading and writing in my journal,
Yeah.
it's not enough. I need something more engaging,
I get it.
something to really make those words come alive.
Staring at lists of words can get a little boring. So that's where contextual learning comes in.
Okay, contextual learning.
It's all about encountering new vocabulary in real-life situations, not just on a page.
Oh, I like where this is going.
The guide suggests watching documentaries, movies, TED Talks, basically anything you enjoy that will expose you to a wide range of vocabulary.
Okay.
And the key here is to be present.
Okay.
Pay attention to the language being used and how it relates to common IELTS topics.
Okay, so instead of just like passively watching a show,
Right.
I'm actively listening for interesting vocabulary words and how they're being used.
Exactly.
Okay, let's say I'm watching a nature documentary about, I don't know, penguins.
Penguins. I love it.
You might hear terms like natural habitat, biodiversity conservation, and species extinction
Yeah.
in a way that actually helps you understand what they mean, not just what the dictionary says.
And that's when the learning really sticks.
It's not just jargon anymore. It's part of a story, and I'm picturing these adorable penguins waddling around,
Yes.
and I'm thinking about how we need to protect their environment.
Exactly. You're not just memorizing definitions.
Right.
You're associating those words with vivid images and emotions, which makes them much more memorable.
Okay, I'm loving all of this so far, but I think we need to address the elephant in the room, technology.
Ah, yes. Technology. It can be both a friend and a foe when it comes to language learning.
Seriously, we have all these amazing language learning apps and tools at our fingertips, but it's also so easy to get distracted by, well, everything else on the internet.
It's all about finding the right balance.
Yeah.
And using technology strategically for vocabulary building.
Right.
And the guide mentions a couple of apps that are really effective for this, like Anki and Quizlet.
Oh, I've heard of those. Enki is the one with the spaced repetition thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like it knows exactly when I'm about to forget a word,
That's exactly it.
and then, bam, it pops up for review.
Spaced repetition is a game changer when it comes to memory retention.
I can imagine.
And then you have Quizlet, which lets you create digital flashcards with definitions, example sentences,
Oh.
and even audio pronunciations.
Okay, this all sounds great, but how do I use them effectively? Should I just, like, download every vocabulary deck I can find?
Not necessarily you want to be targeted in your approach.
Okay.
The key is to create topic-specific decks
Right.
that align with common IELTS themes,
Okay.
like
No,
the ones we've been discussing.
it's the environment education technology. So instead of being overwhelmed by just, like, random words, I'm focusing on vocabulary. That's actually relevant.
Exactly.
Okay, so, like, if I have a technology deck, I might have words like automation, digital transformation, and cybersecurity.
Right.
I can already picture myself writing a killer essay about the future of work.
That's the spirit. And the great thing about these apps is you can actually practice using the new vocabulary you're learning.
Oh.
Write sentences, create short paragraphs, even attempt little mini essays.
Right.
It all helps solidify your understanding and prepare you for the actual IELTS writing tasks.
This is fantastic, but there's one thing we haven't touched on yet
Okay.
that I think is super important for sounding fluent and natural, and that's idioms.
Ah, yes. Idioms are like the spice of the English language.
Exactly. They add flavor, personality, someone's a touch of humor.
Right.
It's like you're speaking in code, but everyone's in on the secret.
Yeah,
I think they're crucial for the IELTS too, right?
absolutely. They demonstrate a deeper understanding of the language and show that you can use it in a natural, sophisticated way.
It's like saying to the examiner, hey, I don't just know the dictionary definition of words.
Right.
I understand how they're actually used in conversation and cultural contexts.
Precisely. The guide gives some great examples of idioms and collocations that are often used in the IELTS.
Okay.
We've already talked about heavy rain and make an effort,
Yeah.
but there's also burn the midnight oil, which means to work late into the night.
I love that one. I can just picture myself hunched over my desk, surrounded by stacks of books.
Yeah.
A single lamp illuminating my weary face, perfect for describing the pre-IELTS cram session.
Very relatable. And that's the point.
Yeah.
Using idioms effectively can add a touch of color and personality to your speaking and writing,
Yay.
which can help you stand out and achieve that higher score.
All of this is making so much sense. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand what it really means to expand my vocabulary for the IELTS. It's not just about memorizing a bunch of fancy words. It's about developing a deeper understanding of how to use language effectively.
Exactly.
In a variety of contexts. Yeah. But there's one more thing I have to ask about, and that's paraphrasing.
Okay.
I know it's essential for the IELTS, especially for the writing and speaking sections, but I'm always so worried about messing it up.
Paraphrasing can definitely be tricky.
Yeah.
But it's a crucial skill to master.
Right.
It shows examiners that you understand the meaning of what you're reading or hearing.
Yeah.
And can express it in your own words.
Right, because just repeating things verbatim doesn't really prove anything. It's like copying someone else's homework.
Exactly.
You might get the answer right, but you haven't actually learned anything.
Exactly. So paraphrasing is about replacing keywords with synonyms.
Right.
While still maintaining the original meaning of the sentence or passage.
Yeah.
So the guide gives an example. The number of tourists visiting the city has increased significantly.
Okay.
How would you paraphrase that?
Let me think. How about, the city has seen a massive influx of visitors.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
You've captured the essence of the sentence and used different vocabulary.
Yeah.
But remember, for the IELTS, you want to maintain a more academic tone.
Okay, so I need something a little more formal.
Yeah.
How about, there has been a notable rise in the volume of tourists visiting the city.
Perfect. You've used more sophisticated language.
Okay.
While still conveying the same meaning as the original sentence.
Right.
And that's the key to effective paraphrasing.
Okay.
You're not just swapping words. You're choosing the right words to create the right tone and style for the situation.
This is all so helpful. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand what it really means to expand my vocabulary for the IELTS.
Great.
It's not just about memorizing a bunch of fancy words. It's about developing a deeper understanding of how to use language effectively.
You got it.
In a variety of contexts.
And the best part is,
yeah,
all of these techniques can be applied to your everyday life, not just the IELTS.
So I can impress my friends with my newfound vocabulary skills.
Exactly.
And ace the exam win-win.
Exactly.
But let's be real, knowing all of this is great.
Right.
But it's useless if you don't actually put it into practice.
You're absolutely right. It's like learning to play an instrument.
Yeah.
You can read all the books and watch all the tutorials in the world.
Right.
But until you actually pick up that instrument and start playing,
you're not going to get anywhere.
Exactly.
So what are some practical ways people can start incorporating these vocabulary boosting techniques into their daily lives?
Well, the guide really emphasizes the importance of making it a habit.
Oh.
Engage in daily speaking and writing practice, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Okay.
Talk about your day, summarize news articles using new words, even record yourself speaking.
Right.
So you can analyze your pronunciation and fluency.
You know, I used to hate hearing my own voice recorded.
Yeah.
But I've realized it's actually one of the best ways to catch those little fluency hiccups. You don't even notice when you're just speaking. It's like having a language mirror showing you exactly what you need to work on.
Exactly.
What about writing? How can people practice that?
The guide suggests composing short essays or opinion pieces.
Okay.
On common IELTS topics, challenge yourself to incorporate at least 5 new words into each piece. Make it a game.
Okay, I love that. Imagine this. I'm describing my morning routine.
Okay.
But instead of saying, I woke up early and felt tired,
right,
I say, I arose at the crack of dawn feeling utterly enervated.
That's a great example. Enervated is definitely a more sophisticated and interesting choice than tired.
Right.
And the more you use these kinds of words in your everyday life, the more natural and effortless they will become when it's time for the IELTS.
Right. It's all about getting comfortable with using these words in a natural way. So when you're in the exam, you don't even have to think about it.
Exactly.
Speaking of the IELTS, I know the exam often focuses on recurring themes like the environment, education, and technology.
Yeah.
How can people make sure they have the right vocabulary for those specific topics?
That's a great question. And the guide suggests creating something called word clusters or mind maps.
Oh.
To help you organize related terms for each topic.
I love mind maps. They're so visual and engaging.
Exactly. Let's take environment as an example.
Okay.
You could start with the central word environment and then branch out to related terms like sustainability, conservation, pollution, renewable energy, and so on.
Oh, this is fun. I'm already picturing a giant mind map with branches extending in all directions, connecting all these fascinating environmental terms.
And as you build these word clusters, try to think about how these terms relate to each other and how you might use them in an essay or speaking response.
Yeah.
It's not just about memorizing isolated words. It's about understanding the connections between them and how they fit into the bigger picture.
This is brilliant. I can see how this would be so helpful for organizing your thoughts and making sure you have a wide range of vocabulary to draw from on test day.
Exactly.
But even with all this preparation, I think testing yourself is still important, right?
Absolutely. And the guide mentions this too.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving perfection.
Right.
It's about identifying your weak spots and areas where you need more practice.
Okay, I'm game. Let me see what's a tricky word from our source material. How about pedagogy? Can I define that one?
That's a great choice. Pedagogy refers to the theory and practice of teaching.
Oh, okay.
So how would you define it in your own words?
Pedagogy is the art and science of helping people learn.
That's an excellent definition.
Okay.
You've captured the essence of pedagogy, highlighting both the creative and systematic aspects of teaching.
Whew. I'm relieved I didn't completely butcher that one. But seriously, this whole deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
Good.
I feel like I'm finally starting to understand what it really means to expand my vocabulary for the IELTS. It's not just about memorizing a bunch of fancy words. It's about developing a deeper understanding of how to use language effectively.
You got it.
In a variety of contexts.
And the best part is, all of these techniques can be applied to your everyday life, not just the IELTS.
So I can impress my friends with my newfound vocabulary skills.
Exactly.
And ace the exam, win-win.
Exactly.
But before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I think it's important to acknowledge that knowing all of these techniques is great.
Right.
But it's useless if you don't actually put them into practice.
You're absolutely right. It's like learning to play an instrument.
Right.
You can read all the books and watch all the tutorials in the world.
Yeah.
But until you actually pick up that instrument and start playing, you're not going to get anywhere.
So true. Yeah. So it's all about taking action and making these techniques part of your daily routine.
Exactly.
Speaking of action, let's move on to part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll explore some practical ways to integrate these vocabulary boosting strategies into your everyday life.
Sounds good.
Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to our deep dive into expanding your vocabulary for the IELTS. Whew. I'm so excited to continue this conversation. We've already covered so much ground, like from active reading and vocabulary journals to the magic of contextual learning and the power of technology.
We've certainly been busy word nerds.
Yeah. But you're right. It's time to get practical.
Yeah.
How can we take all this amazing information and actually put it into practice in our daily lives?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
It's easy to get, excited about new learning techniques, but actually integrating them into your routine.
Yeah.
It's a whole other challenge.
Oh, 100%. I'm the queen of abandoned language learning apps.
Right.
But I really want to make this time different. What's the secret sauce to making these techniques stick?
Well, the guide emphasizes that consistency is key.
Okay.
It's not about, massive, overwhelming changes. It's about making small, sustainable adjustments to your daily routine.
Okay.
So think of it like adding a few drops of vocabulary-boosting fuel to your daily engine.
I love that analogy.
So instead of trying to overhaul my entire life, I can just focus on incorporating these techniques into things I'm already doing.
Exactly.
What would that look like in practice?
Well, for example, instead of just, passively scrolling through social media, challenge yourself to identify and define at least one new word.
Okay.
Or when you're catching up with friends, try to, sprinkle in some of the new vocabulary you've learned.
Oh, that's a great idea. I can totally see myself trying to casually drop the word enervated into conversation.
There you go.
You guys, I'm feeling so utterly enervated after that workout.
See, you're already getting the hang of it. And the best part is, the more you use these words in everyday situations, the more natural and effortless they will become when it comes time for the IELTS.
It's like training your vocabulary muscles.
Exactly.
The more you work them out, the stronger they get.
What?
What about writing? Are there any simple ways to practice that on a daily basis?
Absolutely. Remember those topic-specific word clusters we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Put them to good use.
Okay, tell me more.
Challenge yourself to write a short paragraph or two about a current event related to one of the common IELTS themes.
Okay.
Use at least 3 words from your word cluster.
Okay,
and focus on expressing your thoughts clearly and concisely.
Ooh, I love this. It's like a mini essay practice session.
Right.
But without the pressure of a full-blown exam.
Exactly.
And I bet it would really help solidify my understanding of those topic-specific terms.
You got it. And speaking of practice,
Oh.
let's talk about another crucial element that's highlighted in the guide, testing yourself.
Ooh, tests. This is where I start to get a little nervous.
I understand.
Yeah.
But remember, testing yourself isn't about judgment or perfection.
Okay.
It's about understanding your strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
So you can focus your efforts where they're needed most.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better. So it's like a progress check, not a pass or fail situation.
Exactly.
How would you suggest people go about testing themselves?
Well, there are so many options you can find online quizzes that focus on synonyms, antonyms, even paraphrasing.
Oh, cool.
Or you could set a timer and try to write a short essay on a common IELTS topic,
Okay.
using as much of your expanded vocabulary as possible.
That's a great idea. It's like simulating the actual exam experience,
Exactly.
but in a low-pressure environment, and then once you've tested yourself, you can go back and analyze your performance, right?
Exactly. Figure out which areas you excelled in and which areas need more work. Maybe you aced the synonym questions but struggled with paraphrasing.
Yeah.
That's valuable information.
Yeah.
It tells you where to focus your energy in future study sessions.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
It's all about self-awareness
Right?
and actively engaging with the learning process.
You're spot on.
Not just passively absorbing information, but actively using it and testing your knowledge to figure out what you need to work on.
Exactly. It's about being an active participant in your own language journey.
I love that. So it's not just about learning new words. It's about becoming a more confident and articulate communicator overall.
Precisely. And remember, the skills you develop for the IELTS,
Yeah.
they can be applied to so many other areas of your life.
Right.
They can help you excel in your academic studies,
Yeah.
boost your professional communication,
course.
even make you a more engaging conversationalist.
Okay. I am seriously pumped about all of this.
Good.
But we haven't talked about everything in the guide yet.
Right.
There's still one more piece of the puzzle that I think is super important for sounding natural and fluent in English.
Okay.
And that's idioms.
You're absolutely right. Idioms are essential for achieving that higher level of fluency and showing examiners that you have a deep understanding of the nuances of the English language.
Plus, they're just plain fun.
Yes, they are.
I love the challenge of figuring out the meaning of a new idiom.
Yeah.
It's like solving a little language puzzle.
Yes, it is.
But I have to admit, sometimes I get a little intimidated by idioms.
Sure.
They can be so tricky to remember and use correctly.
I hear you. Idioms are definitely one of the more challenging aspects of language learning, but don't worry. The guide has some great tips for mastering them.
Okay. Tell me everything. How can I become an idiom master?
Well, the first step is to recognize that idioms can't just be memorized like vocabulary words.
Okay.
You have to understand the context and the imagery behind them.
What do you mean by that?
Take the idiom kick the bucket, for example. It
Okay.
means to die. But if you just try to memorize that definition without understanding the imagery,
Right.
you're likely to forget it or use it incorrectly.
Okay, I see what you mean. So instead of just memorizing the definition, I need to try to understand the story behind the idiom.
Exactly.
Where does the phrase kick the bucket even come from?
Well, there are actually a few different theories about its origin. One theory suggests that it comes from the way pigs were sometimes slaughtered.
Oh.
They would be hung upside down from a beam, and as they struggled, their feet would often kick a bucket that was placed beneath them.
Wow, that's a pretty gruesome image.
It is a little bit gruesome.
But it definitely helps me remember the meaning of the idiom.
There you go.
So understanding the imagery behind an idiom can help make it more memorable.
Exactly. And it can also help you use it correctly in different contexts. The guide suggests creating flashcards with both the idiom and the literal image it evokes.
Okay.
This way you're engaging both your visual and linguistic memory.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm a very visual learner, so I think that would really help me.
Good.
But even with flashcards and imagery, I still feel like I struggle to actually use idioms in conversation.
I understand it can feel awkward at first, like you're forcing it, but the key is to start small and gradually incorporate them into your everyday speech.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
That's how we learn.
It's all about getting comfortable with taking risks and putting yourself out there. Are there any other tips for mastering idioms?
The guide suggests focusing on idioms that are relevant to your interests and the topics you're likely to encounter in the IELTS.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're interested in technology, you might want to learn idioms related to computers, the internet, social media.
That makes sense. It's all about making the learning process as engaging and relevant as possible.
Exactly.
So instead of just trying to memorize a random list of idioms, I can focus on the ones that I'm actually likely to use in real life.
Exactly.
Right.
And remember, don't try to learn too many idioms at once.
Okay.
Focus on a few at a time, really get to know them, and then gradually add more to your repertoire.
Okay, this is all making so much sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm finally starting to get a handle on how to approach idioms, but I think it's time for us to take a little break and come back refreshed and ready to tackle the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds like a plan. We'll be back in a jiffy. That's an idiom for a short amount of time to wrap things up and leave you with some final tips and takeaways.
We're back. Yeah, that was a lot of idioms.
It was a lot of idioms, but so much fun.
I feel like I learned so much already.
Me too. But before we wrap up this deep dive into expanding your vocabulary for the IELTS, I want to kind of circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Okay.
The idea that this isn't just about, like, acing an exam.
Oh, you're so right. It's about so much more than that.
It is.
It's about becoming a more confident and articulate communicator, like in all aspects of your life.
Exactly. The skills you develop for the IELTS, they can really help you succeed in your academic studies.
Yeah.
Advance in your career, even build stronger personal relationships.
Right.
It's about unlocking the power of language to express yourself clearly, persuasively, and authentically.
I love that that's such a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not just about like learning words.
Right.
It's about unlocking your voice and using it to connect with the world around you.
Exactly.
And honestly, who wouldn't want that? But I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in like the how-to of it all.
Yeah.
And lose sight of the bigger picture.
I agree. It's like we've been so focused on gathering all the tools and techniques
Yeah.
that we've forgotten what we're actually building.
Exactly. So before we officially wrap up, I want to take a moment to just reflect on like why this matters.
Mm-hmm.
Why is expanding your vocabulary so important, not just for the IELTS, but for like life in general?
That's a great question. For me, it comes down to the power of precision.
Mm.
When you have a rich and varied vocabulary, you're able to express yourself with greater clarity and nuance.
Right.
You can choose the exact words
Yeah.
that capture your thoughts and feelings instead of settling for, like, approximations.
I love that it's like you're painting with a wider palette of colors.
Exactly.
You're not limited to just like the basic shades. You have access to this whole spectrum of hues and tones.
And that allows you to create a more vibrant and compelling picture.
Right.
With your words.
Right.
You can evoke specific emotions, paint vivid images, and connect with your audience on a deeper level.
This is so inspiring.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gone beyond just vocabulary expansion and we've like entered the realm of personal growth and empowerment.
I think you're right. Expanding your vocabulary is ultimately about expanding your horizons.
Ooh.
Intellectually, creatively, even emotionally.
Love that. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what is one final piece of advice you would give to our listeners who are on their own vocabulary expansion journeys?
I would say don't be afraid to embrace the journey.
Yeah.
It's not about like reaching a destination. It's about enjoying the process of discovery and growth.
Okay.
Be curious, be playful, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
That's such a great reminder. It's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Exactly.
And the more you enjoy the process, the more likely you are to stick with it.
Absolutely. And remember, every journey begins with a single step. So what one word will you commit to using correctly today?
Yo.
Choose a word from our deep dive, or maybe one you've been wanting to try out.
Okay.
And make it your mission to use it confidently in a conversation or in your writing.
That's a fantastic challenge. I can't wait to hear what words our listeners choose. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of vocabulary, be sure to subscribe and share this episode with your fellow word nerds and exam conquerors.
Yes.
Expanding your vocabulary is a journey best shared.
Couldn't agree more so. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep those amazing words flowing. Until next time, happy wordsmithing.